Hello. So today I'm going to be refilling some of my watercolor paints in my palette that have run a little low. And so I've got all of my tubes here laid out, and then these are the ones here that I will be refilling, and then these ones here are my extras. So these are my extra Daniel Smiths that are in the palette, most of these, but I'm not refilling right now. These are all of my cores that I'm not refilling with currently. And these are my miscellaneous. I think right now these are all Holbein, but also it includes Sennelier as an extra miscellaneous as well. So these are all my paints. So now I'm going to put these ones that I'm not going to refill today to the side. And I want to show you, because who doesn't love watching paint being squeezed out of the tube? I mean, that's one of the most fun parts of watercolor. So I'm going to show you guys the refilling of these colors. So I've got my swatch card here as my guide so that I know what I'm refilling where. So I'm going to put that there. I mean, I have it memorized, but, I'll just show it for you guys anyways. Okay, so let me start with probably one of my absolute favorite colors in this palette all around is Core Transparent Brown Oxide. Love, 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 love this color. Absolutely love this color. So I'm going to fill that in my palette because I've run it down because I'm using it a lot and mixing it in with reds. So right now, so right here is where that color is, so I'm going to squeeze that. Let me actually just bring this up close so you can see nice and juicy. I used it today, so there's still water in there, but it's no big deal. I'm going to just fill a little bit of it into the pan. And I'm leaving this overnight because I'm finished painting today so that it'll cure somewhat tomorrow. By tomorrow, it'll be somewhat more cured. So it'll be dry and ready to use because I like to use my paints when they're dried. So I'm going to cap that back up because you always cap up your colors after you finish with your colors because heaven forbid our tubes remain open and dry out. We don't want to be cutting into them just to get access to our paint again. So I'm going to be filling my core sap green. I also really like this color and I've been using it. I do use it a lot, not quite as much as the brown oxide, but enough. And I've run down a little bit on it in my palette. So I'm going to just put a little bit of this back in. So in my palette, this right here is the sap green. So I'm going to fill this a little bit. Watch that squeeze into the palette here. I like to squeeze from the end of the tube so that I get as much of it out as I can. I don't want to waste any of this paint because watercolor paints are expensive. Okay, so there's sap green. And I'm going to close my tube. Let's see if I can squeeze that excess back into the tube itself. I'm not wasting my paint. Yeah, looks like I'm getting that back in the tube. Very good. Perfect. So let's close that up. Okay, so sap green is done. Transparent brown oxide is done. So I'm going to put those over here. Maybe I'll put them on top of here because I have this memorized, like I said. So, okay, then what's the next one on my is the Holbein Manganese Blue Nova. This is another fabulous, fabulous, fabulous color. It has like medium tinting strength cerulean blue essentially, but it's like phthalocyanine blue. So it's very light, fast, very transparent, very smooth, non-granulating. And instead of like a phthalo blue green shade or a red shade, this is more like the cerulean color. So it like just naturally has a lighter value than the phthalo blue, which can go darker value. So this is pretty useful. And so I'm going to refill the Manganese Blue Nova. I haven't used up too much of it, but this is the Manganese Blue Nova right here and in these little custom-made foil palette just to squeeze in extra colors. I made my own little half pans with a foil. So this one right here is the Manganese Blue Nova. I'm going to fill that a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay. Let that dry over tonight. This is a fabulous color. I like this color a lot. Okay, so seal that up. Put that off to the side. I'm not going to be using it. What's the next one on my table is my Daniel Smith Hooker's Green. I love this color. This is basically like a secondary, just like a plain old secondary green. And in mass tone, it's very dark. And then as you move into the midtones, it's just like a regular old beautiful green, a smooth, clear, transparent. And then as you light it out, it gets light and very nice. And sometimes it has a little bit of yellow separation because it has the nickel azo yellow in the composition. I think pigment yellow. Let's see, this is worn off a little bit, hasn't it? Yeah, nickel azo yellow, pigment yellow 150. So that does separate out a little bit from the others at times, which is useful. And so I just need a little dab of that because I haven't used too much of it, but this is right there, the Hooker's Green in my palette. Squeeze that in. And some of my plastic half pans I actually did divide with foil to squeeze a few more colors in that I don't use too as much. So, you know, hooker's green is really a convenience green, so mostly a convenience green. I mean, I also use it for mixes, but to darken things and whatnot, but it's mostly convenient, so I don't need so much of it, and I just put a little bit there. And then close my tube. Okay, what's the next one on my palette? Sennelier Primary Yellow. This is a fabulous, 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 fabulous color. I don't tend to use it because this is very expensive. Pigment Yellow 74. Very strong tinting strength. Smooth and buttery because of the honey and Sennelier paints, and fabulous for certain mixes because the binder makes it so that other pigments will interact differently with it, and you can create some like separating effects depending on like if you put in granulating pigments and whatnot, so it's like a useful primary yellow. So I'm going to just top that off a little bit. Because this one I go through a lot because of the honey. You do use a lot more of the pigment each time you go to reach for the paint than some other paint, so that's its downside. So this is very expensive paint. And this is the only tube of Sennelier I have, but I have to say I like it a lot. I'm going to close that up. It looks like I got a little dab of another paint on here, so I'm going to wipe that off. Okay, let me make sure that's sealed. That's sealed. Okay, put that to the side. What's next? The Manganese Blue Hue from Daniel Smith. So this is once again phthalocyanine blue, pigment blue 15. But this preparation is it's the same pigment as, let's see, where did I put it? As the Manganese Blue Nova. It's just also, where does it have the pigment information on Holbein? Yeah, right here. Pigment blue 15. And it should say here. Pigment blue 15. So these are both pigment blue 15. However, this Daniel Smith one is like slight granulation, whereas the Holbein is just completely smooth, and the hues are very close, just very slightly different. So here I actually have them swatched on the card, so I figured I'd show you. This is the Daniel Smith Manganese Blue Hue, slight granulation. You can see it there a little bit. Versus this is the Holbein Manganese Blue Nova, which is just smooth and transparent. So depending on if you want granulation or if you want the smooth, you choose within the same cerulean hue, which is very useful. I do have to say the Daniel Smith one, though, has lower tinting strength. Like, honestly, the tinting strength overall is pretty low, so you do have to be careful with that, and you do, when you reach for that color, you pull up a lot of it to get, the tinting effect you're looking for, whereas the Holbein has slightly stronger tinting strength, which is, more generally useful. Okay, so let's fill the Manganese Blue Nova. Or no, this is the Manganese Blue Hue, sorry. Daniel Smith. Well, that tube is not opening. I have to open that. Oh, there we go. Off camera. Got it started. Okay. And then here is the Manganese Blue Hue from Daniel Smith. So fill that up just a little bit. Don't need too much. Just a little bit. Should be enough. I think that's enough. I'm going to do a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, that's enough. Don't want it to run over too much. I'm going to squeeze that back into the tube. Yep. Okay, what's next? Yellow ochre. Everyone needs a yellow ochre, I think. I mean, you don't need it if you don't need it, but I need it. Pigment Yellow 43. Right here. And I do use yellow ochre sometimes, and I do use a lot of it, so this one has been dented into a little bit, and I just want to refill it because I like to have full colors. I don't like to have too many dents, and so after a while it kind of bugs me, and I just want to fill it up. So I'm going to fill it up. Looks like that's having some binder issues. I'm going to have to stir that. It's all clumpy. That's a mess. Ugh. Okay, that's underwhelming. I'm not happy with that, but we'll mix that in a second. Do I have a toothpick here? I'll use a little bit of wire. And mix that up so that it's even. Oh God. Oop, oh no. Animal hairs. Stir that up. Get that smoothed out. Okay. Okay. So that's yellow ochre. Let me wipe off of the silver because I don't want the yellow ochre on there. I don't want that mixed in. I'm gonna try to dab most of that out. Got it. So that's good. Okay. So what's next is azo yellow. This is one of the first paint tubes. This is actually one of the first time I ever bought a professional tube of paint. This was one of the three. Actually, all three of them I'm refilling today. This is what I started with, is a primary triad that I, just selected randomly at the art store before I knew what the heck I was doing. Started with phthalo blue green shade, azo yellow, and permanent red. So yeah, bought those in San Francisco when I was first starting. And so that was my primary set. Pretty decent selection, not perfect, but it works for the most part. And all three colors I still love. I mean, they're useful colors. They just needed to be supplemented. Alone, it wasn't, enough. Of course, it's a palette. Azo yellow is my favorite yellow, I think. I actually have 2 tubes of it because I'm going to eventually run out of this. Has high tinting strength for a yellow. Pretty mostly transparent, slightly opaque, so we'll call it semi-transparent. And smooth, absolutely fabulous for mixes. Bright, just regular primary yellow. So I have that right here, and that's run pretty low, so I'm going to refill that. Squeeze a good amount of paint into there because I use azo yellow all the time. So I want that to be pretty full. And the yellows do have the lower tinting strength, so you need to put a lot in your palette. That should be enough. Close up our tubes, nice and tight. Not too tight, but tight. Okay, what's next? Permanent red right next to it on the palette. This is a great red. I wish it were a little bit more light fast, but then again, the reds are not that light fast generally a lot of the time, so light fastness too, a little sad, but oh well. What are you gonna do? It's a good red, pretty transparent, nice smooth texture, very useful in mixes for the very neutral hue of red. Let's fill in some of the red there. That's good. Close that up. Okay, what's next? Permanent Alizarin Crimson. What a tricky color. Not really very much of an Alizarin Crimson in truth, because I have the genuine as well. I love this color. I also love this color. Would I use this as a crimson? No, I would not. Would I use this as a crimson if I used fugitive colors? Yes, I would. I have come up with a mix to, add some more pigments to this color to actually, get closer to like the earthiness of an alizarin crimson. I have a video on that, and that's been a successful mix. I do it actually pretty all the time now because that's like my favorite crimson. I actually have it mixed right here in this well. That's the mix that I have for the, light faster alizarin crimson replica, and it does use this, and this is also good for like slightly muted, opaque oranges, so pretty much anything from like New Gamboge through like a cadmium orange, cadmium red, with mixed with azo yellow. This is great for that. So ended up being a useful color anyways, and also for certain florals, just straight out of the tube, this color is good. It's not actually an alizarin crimson by itself, but can be useful for like its own kind of red because it's not really cool enough. It's actually pretty close to being like almost near primary. It's slightly cool, but not as cool as like the alizarin crimson genuine is. So is it a crimson? No, it is not. Is it a useful red for mixing? Yes, it is. So anyways, I got to refill that because I've been using this a lot for red mixes lately. This is another one of my foil colors. I'm going to fill up that well there. Not too much because these don't like it when they overflow. So I'm going to just put a little bit and kind of see if I can push it down into the pan. There we go. Okay, got some excess paint there. Let's see. How am I going to wipe that off? I'm actually going to just add it into this well. We'll use that later. Wipe off the excess with this because I don't really want the cap to not be openable. Okay. Permanent Alizarin Crimson. It's a great color. Disappointing if you want an Alizarin Crimson. And if you're good at mixing and want to mix, very useful as a mixing red. So next one I grabbed is Daniel Smith environmentally friendly Brown Iron Oxide. This is a fabulous mixer. Very neutral gray brown by itself. Can darken many shades and adds a lot of granulation. This is like a super granulator. So pretty much that explains everything, doesn't it? It's a neutral granulator, so you add it to anything and you increase granulation a lot while adding some earthiness. So I use this in a lot of mixes. And it's also good brown by itself too. So let's fill that up. I have used that lately, so it's a little depleted, not too much, so I don't need to put a ton, just some. Okay, that should do it. Squeeze that back in. Close up our tube, make sure it's decently tight. Okay. What's the next color we're gonna grab here? Potter's Pink. Honestly, I was a little underwhelmed with this color too. I think the tinting strength is a little too low. I don't think it's as pigmented as a professional paint should be, but you know, I bought it, I have it, so I use it. Does it work? Yes. Am I thrilled with it? No. And the next time I buy a Potter's Pink, I'm probably gonna buy a different brand, but anyways, that's what I have for now. So Potter's Pink is here in this foil here, and I've used a lot of it because, like I said, it doesn't have the high tinting strength, so you pull a lot of the paint out of, and it's not all that pigmented, so you pull a lot of paint each time you reach for it. So I got to refill that. What is it? A very strong granulating red? As you all know, yes, Potter's Pink is very much a strong granulating pinkish red. So I use that as kind of like my super granulating red primary. If I want something to granulate, then like a red in the mix, right? Like if I'm going to make an orange, well, I can use this as part of the red component to, you know, give granulation to like an orange where you mix red components with yellow components. Well, you add this as your red, part of your red component, and you'll get a granulating orange, so that's cool. And same with purple too, if you wanted to do that. Okay, so then ultramarine blue I've used a lot of lately, so I got to refill this. This is obviously a staple on a lot of people's palettes because it's a fabulous color. So I'm going to fill that. It's a pretty strong granulating blue. Has a nice warmth to it. Semi-transparent, semi-opaque maybe. And, you know, fabulous for purples, fabulous for blue granulated texture. Can be used for skies, for water. Very versatile mixing color. And a good blue by itself too, so let's refill that. Nice and good. So it's a good dab of ultramarine blue because, yes, beautiful. I mean, even just looking at that color right there, it's, oh, gorgeous. So red leaning blue, slightly warm blue. Really love it. And this is the last one to refill for today. Is Daniel Smith Phthalo Blue Green shade. And I've used this color a lot, even though it has very high tinting strength. I just use this so much in mixes that I've depleted it. So time to refill. This has very high tinting strength and can go anywhere from like a dark blue, slightly blackish blue in mass tone, down to the mid-tone ceruleans, down to very light wash. It has very high tinting strength and great mixer to create, you know, like transparent blue mixes. So if you want to make like a transparent purple, it's not the best. Phthalo blue red shade would work a little bit better for that. So these mixes with any kinds of red do end up being a little bit smoky. So you do have to like recognize that. It does excel at the greens though. So if you mix this with any kind of yellow, you're gonna get very clear greens. And yeah, so I like this. Eventually I'll probably end up buying phthalo blue red shade as well because I think that might be a little bit better color. However, if you have room for both, get both. So yeah. So now these are all going to be setting overnight, and hopefully they'll dry out. And because I like to work with the paints dry, like I said, so just gonna have a lot of pets. Okay, so these will dry tonight, and or the next time I paint, they should be ready, set up, and ready to paint with. So it's exciting. You guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Bye bye.